Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup. I am Dennis Shao, the co-organizer of this group. Today, we're talking LinkedIn, how to go from lurker to leader. We are joined by Carolyn Cohen, founder of LYN Content Consulting and Global Content Strategy at Lockton. Carolyn's session is going to explore how to move from passive consumer to intentional creator on LinkedIn without losing authenticity in the process. We can't ignore AI, and we shouldn't. The people who thrive won't be the ones pretending it doesn't exist. They'll be the ones using it intentionally to streamline workflows, pressure test ideas, repurpose content, and create consistency, not to ask ChatGPT to make a post about leadership and hit publish. Carolyn, thanks for joining and take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here and happy to jump in on all things LinkedIn. So, just jumping into it a little bit, I find when I talk to people about LinkedIn, there's a handful of people who immediately are rolling their eyes or a little bit like, oh, I know I have to do it, but I don't want to, or I don't like to do it, or I don't like how it makes me feel. And really, my goal today is to kind of walk us through how you can go from that sort of negative feeling to looking forward to it, being proactive in how you're thinking about it, and really using it to achieve your goals, whatever that may be, depending on what stage of your career you're in. I pulled these just because I love them. These are just from a couple of connections of mine, just talking about how people think about LinkedIn these days and being a LinkedIn influencer or a LinkedIn thought leader. That oh, people who post on LinkedIn are so cringy. But I think of these, I would highlight Tyler's post on the bottom here. This you're cringe until you're successful, then everyone wants to know how you did it, right? So I think that's kind of the mantra I have when I think about LinkedIn, and hopefully you'll leave today feeling a little bit like that too. So just preview of what I'll go through. We'll talk a little bit about setting the foundation for your LinkedIn approach. We'll talk about, okay, literally, what do I post? Because I think it's one thing to talk about in hypotheticals. It's another thing to actually sit down and do it. I'll also talk a little bit about a process that I feel like is an easy jumping off point for people who maybe are just starting to really try at posting on LinkedIn, and then kind of next steps and takeaways from there. So a little bit about me. Dennis shared a little bit, but one post I'd love to highlight is from July 2024. I posted I'm not going to read it for you verbatim, but essentially saying exactly what I just shared, that I used to think poorly of people who are kind of your LinkedIn influencers, LinkedIn thought leaders. And I couldn't understand when somebody would say, I open LinkedIn when I wake up in the morning. I was thinking to myself, why? What could you, unless you're looking for a job, why would you be doing that? And I took a hard effort at finding people that I better aligned with, finding the content that resonated with me best. And then before I knew it, I was opening it when I woke up in the morning. LinkedIn was, going up and up on my screen time. And for me, one thing that helped me is just naming it. I put at the bottom of this. So please don't cringe at my attempt to try this, right? And not even a couple years later, I gained 5,000 followers. So by no means am I trying to say I'm, LinkedIn #1 top voice, but by all means, my attempts have been working, and I feel like the reason I love LinkedIn so much is it is so unique to each person's path and goals and voice and tone and all of the above, just like any other network, which you'll hear me reference as we go. But that's kind of been my LinkedIn journey. From a career standpoint, as Dennis mentioned, I am the founder of LYN Content Consulting, which is my consulting business. But I also work at Lockton. Currently, it's the largest private insurance brokerage, as a global marketing content strategist, and have also worked at the other companies you see here in a content marketing and social media facing role. So LinkedIn has always been part of my career, but I wouldn't say I have been tasked with leading, corporate LinkedIn from that point of view. So more of like the consumer facing. So I can't see the chat, but I probably could guess what the answers are. If you want to throw in the chat or if you want to come off mute, would love to know kind of how you're currently feeling about LinkedIn. So maybe you avoid posting whenever possible. You like to lurk, but you don't post. You post sometimes, or maybe you're already pretty active.
We got a 2.
Yep.
I'm a 3. I post sometimes.
Yeah.
Another 3. Todd never posted on LinkedIn. Interesting.
Wow.
Andy's a 3.
Today. Get ready.
I'm somewhere in between, right? I'm in between 3 and 4 right now. I'm trying to increase my activity.
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of feel like going from 3 to 4 might be harder than going from 2 to 3 because not to say you have nothing to lose when you haven't been doing it, but you kind of don't. When you've been posting a little bit and then you want to bump it up or maybe even pivot, that feels a little more daunting.
Yeah.
So totally relate to where you're at, Kathy. Okay, I'm going to keep rolling. Why, at the end of the day, why does LinkedIn matter? I think there's a lot of skeptics out there that would say, what's the point of this? Or that it's people patting themselves on the back or very, ego driven, just talking about their accomplishments or their rewards. The reality is it is a platform where decision makers are, and that is where they are going for research. That is where they are looking into what they might look for in a new agency, in a new consultant, in a new partner, whether it's B2B or not. I think actually B2C has seen an explosion on LinkedIn. If any of you work in more B2C roles, I'm seeing CPG cookie brands using LinkedIn in their tactics, right? Like it's not exclusive to B2B, but certainly it does live there. And I pulled this quote from Molly, who's at CBRE, just talking about getting that business from LinkedIn, but it's not somebody who has commented. It is someone who's been reading your content and they stay top of mind. And then 2 months later, they send you an email and you're like, I didn't even know you were thinking of me. Awesome. I'll take your business. And in fact, said in the most humble way, I have a mentor of mine who teaches a course that I took 2 or 3 years ago, like a leadership training course. And a friend of mine is in the course now. So same mentor, same teacher. And she told me yesterday that this mentor referenced one of my LinkedIn posts in one of the meetings. And I was like, well, that's funny because I haven't talked to Denise in a year. But, you just don't know what people are going to be doing when they're absorbing your content. So that visibility does matter, whether or not you're seeing a literal action on the day that you post. For a long time, LinkedIn has had a few mindsets that really are now shifting. And so I want to start here with the foundation. There historically has been pressure to post. I don't think that's different than any other platform, but I really like to think about it. I'd rather have 2 to 3 really good posts in a week than worry about posting every day. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I find myself going, oh man, I haven't posted in 5 days. Like, well, I better think of something. But if I force it, it's probably not going to be that great. And I'm not going to lose business by not posting in a specific time window. So I think just that quality over quantity does still matter. Another mindset that I've really seen shifting on LinkedIn, which probably a lot of you have seen on other platforms too, is these platforms don't want people to leave. And while LinkedIn may not come out and say it the same way that other platforms won't say it either, there is a sentiment that linking externally may hurt the performance of your content. And so if everything you ever post is go read this article, go watch this video on YouTube, go subscribe to my newsletter at this other link, as opposed to keeping your reader on LinkedIn, there's probably some give and take there, and everybody might find some different results from experimenting there. I would view this as like link if necessary, but if you're trying to make a point, make it in your post as opposed to driving somewhere else. Another kind of hot item as of late, I feel like, which is not new, but I think people are more comfortable talking about it now, is shifting away from I only can ever say something brand new. Actually, people are finding that if you look at a retro 6 months year and you say, what was my top performing piece of content? And you repost that exact same thing, it will probably perform well again. And whether you're a person who wants to reskin it or add a different graphic or a different hook, but it's the same point. I encourage everyone to do this, and I try and do it myself a little bit. Sometimes, I'm not always practicing what I preach because I want to come up with new things, but it is a practice that as a reader, I know I am I fall for it. I follow people that I see them post kind of the same thing, and I will like it every time because I'm like, yes, I agree, and I will do it, and I will give them the engagement. I'll save it again because it's that good. And then lastly, professional tone versus sounding like yourself. Honestly, of all of these, I find this is the biggest shift I've seen in the last 2-3 years, where it's okay to talk like you would talk. That said, everyone's voice is different. Some people will curse. Some people will talk politics. Some people will be on, the outer edge of maybe what is professional. So do what's right for you, and do what you would feel comfortable with in your peer network. But it's okay not to have everything feel like it's something you wrote for a corporate white paper. So jumping into a couple of the just basics, if you are newer to LinkedIn, or maybe it's been sitting stagnant for a long time and you want to give it a good go. The first is just optimizing your profile. I would set aside 15-20 minutes on a day where you don't have a lot of meetings, and just try and knock these 3 things out, and it will be a good reset for you. First is your URL and your name. LinkedIn will give you the ability to change your URL if your URL is just like a default jumble of characters. So mine is Carolyn R. Cohen because that's what my email address is. That's what my handles are. It matches my other online presence. And then same with full name. You may use a middle initial. You may use a nickname if you're Michael, but you go by Mike. Use what people know you by. Use what they're going to search, and keep that consistent. Next is photo. I think people would be shocked at photo that there are a lot of people that don't have a photo, or that the photo is old, poor quality, bad. That said, I would never tell anyone you have to go get a photographer to give you a professional photo shoot. There's plenty of AI-driven tools, or even have a friend take a nicely shot, portrait photo on your iPhone, and that will suffice. But as I have on the slide, only thing worse than a bad photo is no photo. So you don't want to be the gray icon. And then last is this about section. So the keywords you put in your about are what help you show up in search. So having this filled out, having it be complete, makes a difference. And if it hasn't been updated in a while, set a reminder for yourself once a year to say, hey, on May 1st, every year, I give it an update. I think going back to the thought of, I only use LinkedIn when I'm looking for a job. If you're only updating LinkedIn when you change jobs, you fall into the same trap. And especially for those of you who might work for yourselves as consultants, you want this to be fresh. You want it to be updated so that you're getting the most out of it. A couple of notes on posting what I would call with purpose is more than just updates. And I'll share some examples here on the next slide. But this, I think, is a shift for a lot of people. And I fell into this trap, which I will show you my own bad examples, don't worry, where you might only think the only relevant content is, I got a new job, an article I wrote, an award I won. But you have perspective, you have points of view and ideas that's why you are valuable to your clients and your companies. that's what people resonate with on LinkedIn, is those feelings. And I hate to call them hot takes because they don't have to be a hot take. It can just be your experience or an observation. But really, the opinion area on LinkedIn is that sweet spot where you're getting people agreeing and frankly even disagreeing with you, which is healthy. Debate is always encouraged in my book. The second piece is considering your audience. Everyone is at a different level in their career, different industries. For example, my husband works in finance and accounting. A lot of the things I might post, he would make him pass out, right? Because I'm in marketing and content land, right? And he would never, ever want to do that. So worth considering. And even if you are in marketing, if your niche is legal and you might be connected with a lot of people in one particular industry, worth considering. Something I always also saw here, which I pointed out when I kind of gave myself the push a couple years ago, is if when you open up LinkedIn and you're scrolling, nothing resonates with you or you don't like what you see, look for new connections, look for new people to follow and engage with. And as much as people like to hate on the algorithms, they are there for a reason. And if you add new people into the mix and you start engaging with those people, you will get more similar content. You will see the content that they engage with that might tip you off to someone else you should engage with. It's kind of that vicious cycle. And then last, that your POV. So when you're thinking about your readers, what's in it for them and what would make them click read more? Sometimes it's just a quippy one sentence post that maybe all the goal there is a like and to get your name out there. Other times it might be something more in depth and long form. So just keeping that in mind of what the purpose is and how you're going to get them to engage. Okay, so I told you I would call myself out. So these are a couple of my old LinkedIn posts. And, granted, these are old, but on the left-hand side here, this is just me linking out an article. I didn't even pull out a quote. I just repeated the title, right? So sure, that's fine, but I'm not providing any perspective. I'm not even saying great article or like cool learnings. So, not my best. The next one, marginally better, driving out to a press release, tagging my employer at the time, but still not really anything wild. That post could have been so much better, talking about the upcoming campaign we were getting ready to launch and the behind the scenes of how we made it. Or maybe it's a preview of something that is coming soon, or a tidbit we learned from our market research. Like, so many more opportunities to make that content stronger. Slightly better from a handful of years ago. So now I have a photo that I'm including. I'm tagging my employer using a hashtag there. And I'm talking about, hey, I'm excited. But for the most part, this is pretty just into the Kool-Aid of my employer to say, all the people that are commenting also worked at H&R Block with me. So again, helpful, a little better, but it's still not providing any kind of POV. No one's going to look at this and be like, that Carolyn, I got to work with her. These are a handful of in my last 6 months, my top performing posts now. But you will see they have shifted drastically. So they all certainly have an air of fun and internet culture to them. And that's something that I leaned into. But the one on the left-hand side is a bit longer of my opinion and analysis about hashtags. So really talking about, are hashtags worth it? Should we still be doing it? I'm citing some quotes from subject matter experts. I'm tagging that author. I'm tagging another newsletter that I read, and, sure, included kind of a fun GIF with it to get people drawn in. The two on the right, though, are about content marketing, but they are done in the vein of entertainment, honestly. This middle one here, I screenshotted a handful of Threads posts from consumer brands that were just completely unhinged. I just saw in my normal scrolling and kind of leaned into this trend of, okay, this would put 2012 me into a coma to see that this is what brands are posting now. But this had like 25,000 impressions. And then on the right, as a self-proclaimed Swiftie, I'm allowed to post this, so it's okay, don't worry. But pulling in something from current news, pop culture after the Knicks games where Taylor Swift attended, grabbing these, turning them into marketing memes and publishing those out there. So again, it's still in my wheelhouse, and it's still kind of doubling down on how someone might view me and say, tapped into culture, tapped into marketing, understands what's going on, but also has opinions, has something of value to provide. But at the end of the day, these also show that I am a human being. I think that's, again, one of like the shifts I love on LinkedIn is that people are talking about parenthood. They're talking about getting laid off. They're talking about difficult things they're going through. And that resonates just as much as a interesting take on SEO. There's room for both, and I encourage both for whatever you're comfortable with. But that's kind of why I highlighted in the middle here, like having empathy. When I see someone that I know and they're posting about getting let go from a job, I'm not just liking the post. I might send them a message and say like, hey, I'm so sorry to hear that. Are you connected with someone at this company? I know they're hiring for roles like what you recently had. How can you help people? How can you engage with them? And same for engaging in positive ways. When someone shares a promotion or a new role, what else can you share besides congrats? Just how can you add the humanity to it? Going back to the poll where we talked about posting, but maybe not consistently. When I think about consistency over perfection, this is really a big takeaway I have, that trust compounds over time, that the more you are posting, even if not every post is like your top performing post ever, doing it consistently, it helps you work the muscle of posting, but it also builds up that library. So when someone goes, they can see that you're active. And really just at the bottom here, the more you show up, the more opportunities that take root. I think one of the things that really has surprised me in the past few years is I will see someone at the gym that I know and they'll be like, I love your LinkedIn posts. And I'm like, I didn't even know we were connected on LinkedIn, but glad to hear it. Right. And, whether or not I ever work with that person in a professional way, it does make a difference to be consistent. And I think getting to the point of having a plan for how you post, that's really my goal for everybody today. Okay, shifting a little bit to comments. So I said not so secret. It's not a secret, but commenting on LinkedIn is really a game changer when it comes to your visibility. It's kind of like you need both legs going at once. You need one side over here posting your own content, but you also need to be engaging. There are people who will give you a spiel about before you go on LinkedIn or before you post, you need to comment on 10 pieces of content because that will help you in the algorithm. I can't speak to if that is true or not. I know for me, it is natural to do that, to say, maybe I'm getting ready to post before I post. I'm going to scroll a little bit. Also for me, if I am posting about anything in sort of the zeitgeist, I also want to make sure whatever I'm about to post hasn't been posted to death already, because that does happen and I don't want to just get lost in the feed there. But a couple of things about comments to highlight here. First, you do get priority when you are engaging. So, on the left-hand side here, I don't follow Elijah, but his post was served to me because I'm connected to We Are Rosie. So it doubles your potential for visibility. You're also getting that exposure to new audiences. I have comments in a given week that have more impressions than a post that I have made on my own channel. So that's worth it. It's not nothing. And then you can see that exactly from this post here from Alex, that his comments on other people's content have generated more than his own posts. So if you can do both, that's really the secret to unlocking more visibility. And these are just a sample of some of my comments. And you will see sometimes they are tailored to the audience, right? Like I'm not going to comment chef's kiss with no context on just anybody's post. That's someone that I know. That's someone that I know they will get what I mean. Whereas the comment in the top right, like loved this morning and getting to meet you, that was a little bit more professional and a little bit more, someone that I clearly had just met and didn't want to dive in with, maybe something a little sillier. But you'll see like these impressions are all over the board, right? Like this one has 100 impressions, this one has 2,000 impressions.
Hey, Carolyn, we have a question from Kathy.
Please.
She asked, do you mainly scroll the home section on LinkedIn to find the posts to react to?
Oh, do I do that?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I know there, with LinkedIn, I stay in home. You can kind of view it from like your connections, and they're actually very timely, actually. I'd seen some conversation, I think just this week, about a view or the ability to post just to your connections as opposed to public. So TBD on what LinkedIn has cooking in terms of parsing out audiences. But yeah, I stay at home because yes, I might get fed things that I don't already follow, but most of the time I am interested in it.
Mhm.
And I'm also not afraid if something shows up, I will say like not interested in this, or like not, I don't need to block people, but like don't show me this again, basically.
And Kathy had an earlier question about connection requests.
Yes.
When you seek out new connections, how can you deepen those connections beyond the initial warm chat exchange in your connection request?
Yeah, great question. Certainly, depending on if you have LinkedIn Premium, which is probably a whole other conversation, but if you have that and you have the ability to add a note, I would always encourage that. And the more human and less copy paste you can be, the better. In a perfect world, you'd say, hey, Kathy, I saw your post last week about AI and thought it was super interesting. I'm also looking a lot more into it these days. Would love to stay connected, right?
Mhm.
And then in order to deepen that, just ensuring that the next time each other posts, you might engage with those, kind of keeping that person top of mind. Like there is a person, Rachel, never met her, only met her via LinkedIn. I can tell you she engages with every single one of my posts. And if she ever messaged me to be like, hey, could you refer me to a colleague of yours? I would be like, no question. Of course I will. Right. Like, and I haven't even had a conversation with her, but we've just engaged enough that I feel connected to her.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is genuinely like a good way to do that. I feel the connection request and the messages mainly get a bad rap for cold sales. Right.
Yes.
And I think we've all seen that where somebody messages you and it kind of sounds like they just want to get to know you, or they're in your same field. And then they're like, do you want to see a demo? And you're like, hey, cool it. Sometimes I do want to see a demo, but I'll ask you when that time is.
Mhm. Yeah.
Awesome. Great
Thank you.
questions. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we'll jump into another little poll here. Dennis, sorry for asking you for chat help, but if you want to drop in, what's the hardest feeling you have about posting on LinkedIn? You're not sure what to say. You have that kind of cringy, embarrassing feeling, simply don't have time, or almost like overthinking to the point of analysis paralysis. And can be a combination.
We got a 2 and a 4, and we have a 2 and a 3. I think for me, sometimes is 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I mean I'm a 1 also. Sometimes I will have a lingering thought in my head and I'll be like, I know I want to say something about the World Cup, but I'm just so overwhelmed by the sheer volume of ways I could talk about the World Cup. Do I want to talk about how brands are leaning in? Do I want to talk about sponsors? Do I want to do something more like a silly meme? Like there's so many ways to do it that I almost just like I go from 1 to a 4 on something like that, where I just like overthink it and I just have to shelve it away. Okay, well, thank you.
A few more comments. Michael says 2 and 4. Internet is permanent, and I don't want to look like an idiot. And Floyd says he has a 5th, which is who am I posting as? He's a contractor and involved in a startup as well.
Okay, love this question. I actually face this same dilemma because I am a dual person as well, right? Like I have a corporate role and then I also do consulting on the side. And there are times when I am posting, for the most part, more as consultant like me, as opposed to my role on the corporate side. And I think to myself, man, my boss is going to see this in my corporate job and be like, what are you talking about? Why are you talking about that? That doesn't make any sense. Something I have done, and Floyd, happy to like offline with you if you want, but there are a handful of other people that I know that are in this same situation, and I have their names like saved away so that sometimes when I'm feeling that way, I just go look at theirs and I'm like, hey, other people do this. And like, what is the worst case scenario? My boss says, hey, Carolyn, why are you talking about AI video creation when you aren't doing that in your corporate role? And I'll say, it's relevant to me. It's relevant to the industry. Like, I think if I was posting something like really off base or that conflicts, that's where there would be some weirdness. And occasionally I've pondered that, like, oh, I want to kind of criticize something publicly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, actually, that's probably a bad look. Maybe
Right.
I'll save that one away just because it's not worth causing a firestorm.
Right.
But yeah, it is a balance for sure. I have taken the approach of I probably post 80% as me the consultant, and maybe
Yeah.
20% from like my corporate role. And
All
I'm
right.
comfortable with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question.
And then Carolyn, about not having enough time, Linda has a question. She says, these are great tips, and they seem like they'll take a lot of time, especially while working a full-time job. Will you have tips on how to scale this?
Yes, ma'am. We are going to do it. We're
Okay.
going to do it. Don't you worry. So, and Dennis, if you'd like, happy to have you share the deck. Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Oh, okay. Thought someone was talking. All good. I was just going to say, I'll give you all these slides.
Oh, cool.
So don't feel like you need to screenshot or anything.
Excellent.
But I wanted to include a couple of slides like this with very tactical examples because, again, it's one thing in hypothetical, it's another thing in real life. But yes, these are broad, but if you take just this little how-to quadrant and you apply that to an area of your work and you say, what's a step-by-step guide for how I develop content for organic? What's a step-by-step guide for how I would think about growing an organic Instagram channel? And what's a step-by-step guide for how I would guide a startup just starting their email journey, right? Like these are things you're doing them every day in whatever exact niche you're in. And sometimes just making the invisible visible is what makes that good content. And there is certainly a tendency to have fear around giving too much away or giving too much away for free. So don't feel like you need to have it be everything. It could be, here's things I'd think about, or here's how I did it once. Let me help you do that. Right? Like you can parlay a lot of these into sharing what value you can bring or have brought to a particular client or campaign, but not giving away, your trade secrets. You'll see a lot of these are very transparent feeling, and that is intentional because that's what gets saved. That is what people share. That's what people resonate with. This little purple quadrant on the top right, I think is a very kind of safer space too, if you don't want to be giving away a lot of like how you work, but maybe like the post I made about hashtags. That's kind of that second bucket, like things I changed my mind about. So maybe you recently read an article that changed your perspective on SEO, I will use. You can reference an article and talk about you used to think this, but now you think this, and you're curious what others think, right? Prompting your followers to engage with you. So again, these are just examples, but I think these are categories that you could put into a framework and then easily map different nuggets under each of them. I'm going to keep going just because I want to make sure I also leave time for questions. I stole this with credit and approval from Katie here. She is also a great follow. But this massive diagram here, I think, is a very nice visual way to see what you might post about. So, you know, obviously I referenced Taylor Swift and pop culture. Like that for me falls in more of like a, I don't know, what I love. It's not what I do. It's not needed. But if I can find a way to work in something about Love Island and also working in corporate, and I think it's going to resonate with people, I will do that. And like, I am always experimenting. Like, to me, there really is no such thing as a fail on LinkedIn unless you are truly posting something that is going to get you fired, right? Which hopefully you know what that boundary is. But, you know, the worst thing that's happening is it doesn't get a lot of engagement. That's okay. You can learn from that. You might even take that and say, hey, in 6 months, I'm going to try that again, but maybe tweak something about it and see what happens. So again, you don't need to screenshot of this. I'll give this to you guys. But another way to think about LinkedIn content is around signature series. These are examples. You could customize this to what makes sense for you. But in that sense of, I don't know what to post, I don't have time, these might help you in taking a thought from like a little bubble into a real post. Like links I clicked is a, you know, you could rename it something more cutesy, but that's a category I love if you are someone who consumes a lot of content. If you are reading a lot of newsletters and articles and studies and reports, you could say, hey, every Friday, I'm going to post 5 links I clicked this week. And I will maybe put one kind of insight or one finding from each. Like that is super valuable, super interesting. It shows that you are staying up with what's happening in your industry. And it didn't really take you any extra time if you were already reading those things to begin with. So food for thought for all of these. There's no one right way. Now I'm going to get into kind of how you might put this into practice from a planning standpoint. This sounds basic, but document everything. And I will give you my real examples here too. There is so much that can become LinkedIn content. And once you've had that unlock, it becomes just like second nature, almost to a nerdy degree in my case. But were you in a one-on-one with your boss? Were you talking to your friends at happy hour about something? Like, what can you pull from that you just want to jot down? Is there a question that's keeping you up at night or something you're wondering about that, you know, probably other people are feeling that way too? And side note, it's okay to post a question. Not everything you post has to be like a definitive perspective. It can say like, has anyone solved the crux of finding an AI tool that you feel comfortable drawing something out of and not feeling like you need to second guess yourself, as an example. It can also be just like things that surprise you, what makes you smile. And those things, I call them, you know, your random shower thoughts. So this is an example from my phone of like the kinds of stuff that I am saving. So for the first one is an ad I got served on TikTok that featured Hannah Berner, who's, you know, influencer celebrity, and it used an ad function I hadn't seen before, like a choose your own adventure. You could click which ad you want. And I was like, I've never seen that before. That's cool. Saved that. Then the middle one, this is on Instagram. I saved this from Monterey Bay Aquarium. This is from a couple of months ago, where Taylor Swift was seen wearing the Monterey Bay Aquarium shirt. And I was like, there's something there, right? I don't know what it is yet. I'm just going to save this post. Eventually, I did post about it on LinkedIn. The middle is basically my LinkedIn ideas note, where I am just dropping stuff in. Some of these I have posted since, some of these I have not. Like it costs you nothing to tell someone in real life you like their LinkedIn content. I did post that. I posted that whole like blurb, but I still have yet to post I once Mrs. Doubtfire at a meeting. Hopefully you all know what I mean by that. I did do that. And then on the right, that is a picture from the library where I was with my kids and I saw that book and I was like, I don't know, that's kind of funny. Maybe there's something there. And when I started going to the library with my kids more often, I was like noticing just funny kids book titles. So I started taking pictures of them. And now probably every 6 months, I post something with library books. So this is what works for me. But like, honestly, if I'm having a morning where I'm like, I want to post something, but like, I don't know what's out there, I'm pulling from all these sources. As a side note, I am fully aware that there's probably a better, more technologically advanced way to save all of this. Someone has probably found a solution where you can pull in from all these different places. That's on my to-do list to figure out. But for now, this is what works for me. You might find something works better for you. But truly that like document everything is my lifeblood for posting. So what could a starter plan look like if you are not currently an active poster? I would say week 1, update your profile and start commenting. Easy. That should feel very palatable. Week 2, I would try and post once and then maybe add some connections. And then post 3, start whatever your version of post ideas, iPhone note, Google Doc, OneNote, voice reminders, whatever works for you. Maybe start to identify what are some series you could repeat and challenge yourself to post twice. You can see how this sort of exponentially grows, again, to your time commitment level. And then I just throw this GIF in here because like, this is how I feel sometimes walking around and I'm like, that could be on LinkedIn. And I see a billboard while I'm driving and I'm like, cool billboard from Budweiser. And this is as strange as it feels. And I wish that for all of you. And, some of it sits in a note that I've never touched in a year. And some of it I go back and I pull it back out and I turn it into something. As your final things to remember, and then I can do some more Q&A. So start your pace however works for you, but just know that consistency matters. So whatever that goal is, post once a week, post twice a month, whatever is doable for you, just start small and grow from there. I would challenge you to, if you want to use this ratio, every time you post, comment 3 times on other content. I would start documenting stuff today in whatever, again, fashion works for you. I think the benefit now versus 5 years ago is essentially all platforms, websites, social media have like a save function now, which while would be great if they all merged together, for now, it works like it works for me. And then the last thing I would say to remember is just to be yourself and be you. I think you have all probably seen someone say on LinkedIn, like, hey, this is who I am. And if you don't, not to say if you don't like it, I don't want to work with you. You don't need to be that harsh. But that's sometimes how I feel. Like if I'm going to post something and it's going to really rub somebody the wrong way, like we probably aren't a good culture fit anyways. So that's my food for thought. And then happy to jump into questions. I'm going to see if I can open up the chat so you don't have to read them to me, Dennis.
Okay. I'll start with a quick question, Carolyn. Where, if at all, do you think it's acceptable to use AI in your process or in your proposed process?
Yeah. I would say I love using Claude, ChatGPT, Copilot for workshopping, I would call it. So sometimes I will put in, here's where I'm at. Can you zhuzh it up or make it punchier or make it shorter? And I almost always will say, give me 3 options, or however many you want. My personal style also, I built a project where I trained it on my LinkedIn voice and tone. So I pulled out like a year of my LinkedIn content, only the ones I liked, and put them in a Word document so it was easy for it to read. And I said, this is how I talk. So when I ask you for help, this is my voice, right? I personally like would not have AI write something from scratch for me.
Right.
Others might feel differently, but that's just like my 2 cents.
Yeah.
And I would say for imagery, just like tread carefully. I think there's instances where it's fine, and there's instances where it's like you didn't even need an image, so why did you go to the process of making something that says Happy July 4th from me? Like I don't need that personally.
Yeah.
But like if you're using it to say I want a new headshot or that kind of thing, like fine.
Got it. So there's
Okay.
a question. Yeah, there's a question in the chat from Michael. I'll just read it. Does LinkedIn need to be its own content? What is the value of linking to other content you write, like on Substack?
Yes, great question. I don't think it needs to be independent, but I think it would be additive to something like a Substack. So there's a handful of people that I know I personally follow that have very, very active, successful Substacks, and they will use LinkedIn kind of as a preview. They might say, this week I interviewed so and so, and here's a quote. Go read the full thing, right? I think that is very appropriate, as well as taking into account, maybe it is something you saw in the media that is tangential to your Substack that week or to an article. So you're like, I wrote about this, and look, so did the Wall Street Journal, right? Like you could probably find some pieces in there too, but I wouldn't call it like a one-to-one. I think you have your whatever your cadence for a Substack is, and then use LinkedIn to help amplify.
So staying on the Substack topic, have you created your own LinkedIn newsletter, and what do you think about that feature?
Good question. I have not. I may in the future. Like I have a couple of like ideas that I've saved somewhere of like maybe one day I'll do this. I do think the LinkedIn newsletter is successful, but I also understand why people are on, Substack or Beehive or some of these other platforms that maybe make monetizing easier. I don't, frankly, like haven't dabbled enough in newsletter world to give you a hard opinion on that. But I think if you want to write, the newsletter function on LinkedIn is like an easy way in, and something you could kind of test the waters without having to, commit maybe to like, I've launched a Substack. Which kudos to anyone who has.
Yeah. Other questions? We have probably time for 2 more before our hour is up.
Okay, I see Linda's question. What tips do you have to make the process faster, more scalable? Totally agree. I would say, like, I'm not spending all day on LinkedIn either. I treat it like a morning read. Like when I'm sitting down to my computer, I will usually open it up, and I don't use, I'm sure some of you are familiar with like the brick like thing. You can kind of like brick your phone. Okay, if you haven't, you should look into it. It's very cool, but it's very, it's a little too harsh for my liking. It essentially like turns off everything on your phone when you're working so that you work. But I will set a timer for myself. I'm going to say like, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on LinkedIn so I don't just get like sucked in a rabbit hole. And then I will kind of bop off. And if I feel like it later in the day, I might look in it. But that's really where I'm saving those notes is like, I don't have time to write something about everything all the time, but maybe I see it, save it. And then in that 15-minute window, I go back to it and turn it into a post. Okay. How do you get over feeling embarrassed or shy to post? Honestly, like it is hard. I won't lie that it is hard to get over it. For me, it helped me to name it and just address it and say like, it is cringy, or like, I know this is cringy. And that helps me just be self-aware. Like, yeah, I know what I'm doing here. So do you. Like we know what's going on here. The same way that I think a lot of people who are consultants feel the same way, like the cold outreach or like sales outreaches can be cringy, embarrassing for people too. It's just a part of it. You have to get over it. I think practicing is the best way to do it. Okay, and then when I publish on my company, LinkedIn X. Yeah, seeing your question about LinkedIn and X, I would say like if there is a reason to drive somewhere, that's fine. I think you start to now see people putting the link in the comments. That's sort of an anecdotal. It helps you in the algorithm. No one can say for sure if it does or not. I do it. If I'm going to link to an article, I'll be like, link in the comments. It's hard to say if that hurts you or not. It's kind of like you just have to try it and feel it out. But if you can get to the point without linking, I would do that.
So Carolyn, you mentioned, or you showed a slide of some of a LinkedIn post where you had screenshots from Threads. I was curious how you're using Threads. Is it personal versus business? And are there any similarities to your tips here to how you're using Threads?
Yes, great question. I love Threads. And I would say in the last like 6 months, I've really started using Threads more in a personal capacity. I may kind of push more professional on it at some point, but right now it's very personal only. Nothing I would be embarrassed about because, as we said, the internet is forever. Did I post about the Lion King soundtrack yesterday? Yes, I did. That's fine. But I do think Threads it's such an interesting place because the tone is so different than X, and you don't have a lot of the built up, I don't know, bots and spam and kind of just like baggage from Twitter than X. I also like personally don't align with X, so I don't use it anymore. So like I deleted it. Sorry to say. So I was like, but I missed it. There was things that I was sad to stop using it. So I was like, I'm going to give Threads a try. And I have been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too. I use it just for personal, not for business at all.
Yeah.
And I think the phenomenon that I've found is the comment thread. So someone will have some innocent comment or something that they said that's wrong, or like a photo that they're revealing something,
Yes.
and then it'll be like 200 comments.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is saying, I love Threads for the comments.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a more, I don't know, positive, fun place. And I think they've done a good job of parsing out kind of communities, whether it's like you're into books, you're into music, you're into TV shows, like you can kind of find your little corner.
Right, exactly.
Awesome.
All right, and with that, I think we're out of time. Carolyn, thanks so much for joining and
Yeah.
providing such wonderful practical tips on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I will
happy to
share
do it.
the slides in our meetup page. And we have more meetups scheduled this summer, so check out our page for the details.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for the great questions.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.